Well, hello, everybody. We are back with yet another episode in this series of hiring and retaining DJ staff. And in this leg of the series here, we're going to be focusing on what we do now. They're in the fold, and we want to keep them there as much as we can. And so we're going to talk it through from that angle on what our approaches are to keeping staff, incentivizing staff, and then if, God forbid, there be an issue, how we delicately deal with removing a staff member, because it's all kind of falls in this wing of things here. So joining me once again, we've got Chris Romero from Cutmaster Music. Chris, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, Brian. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to dive into this episode of retaining staff. And I think this is a little bit different depending on your model. If you have subcontractors and that's the way that you've got staff, that looks probably a little bit different, although there is some crossover, I'm sure, than if you have employees as your DJs, which is how we operate. I know you kind of operate with the subcontractor model at the moment.
We do.
Maybe, talk through what some of those things that you do and to keep staff employed or on the referred list if they're comfortable.
Yeah. You know what? So I think, in all honesty, the biggest thing, it's like, I don't know if this is to me, it's kind of a no-brainer, but pay them well.
Yeah.
I mean, that plain and simple. I believe it. So I have this little philosophy, I guess, that I believe that in any industry, any market, the best deserve to be paid the best. So, even though they're contractors with us, they do go through a training system, so to speak, getting up to speed with how we'd like for them to go out in the field and do things, while also maintaining their own personalities and building their own brand within the Cutmaster brand. But I think to be competitive in any market, you've got to pay them well. And I think the best deserve to be paid the best. So, that's our guys. I know that the guys that work with us, our DJs, our lead DJs, are making more on average than most of the other companies are charging in our market. Yeah. So it makes no sense for them to go off, and because people will ask, well, aren't you afraid of losing them and them going off and doing their own thing? Well, in reality, not really, because even though they might be able to go off and pick up their own events, it's not going to be on the scale and on the level that I'm able to provide them week by week, right. Just on the whole, right?
Yeah.
So they might work. You know how it is. We all know how it is. When you first started, how hard was it to get jobs? And then on top of that, you have this kind of mentality of like, oh my God, is the phone ever going to ring again? Right. So you start discounting and you start offering at a lower rate. We don't have that here now, right? We've got this reputation, we're built in, and I can get these guys just consistently working. So they're gonna work a lot more under Cutmaster Music than they definitely will trying to go out and do this on their own.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a good tip. I mean, for me, maybe we can just go back and forth on this a little bit with different tips. But mine is keep them booked. If you don't want them to be looking anywhere or trying to start something on their own, I mean, I agree with you 100% that it definitely starts with what you're paying them. But if you can't keep them booked, it doesn't matter how much you're paying them. You know what I mean? Yep. So I feel like if you can keep them constantly working, they're going to feel like, hey, they're an important part of the team and an integral part of it in a lot of cases. And keep them booked, and that definitely helps with the retention rate a little bit. Let me ask you just one thing on your rates and stuff. I mean, as far as what you're paying out, not exact numbers or anything, but do you believe in the model of, paying a premium for them and keeping them there forever, or do you have like a scale? And we're going to get to this in another episode, but do you have a way to incentivize them or to work their way up?
Yep, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit more in the future episodes here. But yeah, we are definitely on a tiered system. So anybody that comes in, you start at level 1, basically, so to speak. Actually, when you come in, you're on-the-job training, so you're OJT. Then you move into a level 1, and then all the way up from that point. And then there's other built-in things that we'll talk about later that we do as well.
Okay, so you're saying, though, the entry-level pay is, in your market, at least for what you're doing, higher than what some people are even charging That's crazy.
I don't know if the entry level is, but it's definitely competitive. There's no doubt about that. So then they're incentivized to get up to like the higher levels in the scale, right? And they know like that's the holy grail. I need to get to this point. And there's different things that they need to do to be able to get there. So
that's awesome. I'll give a couple other ideas that we used to do, kind of along the same lines of pay, because I think that is an important thing, right? Like what you're bringing home, you want to make sure you're having some incentive to stay. And one of those for us, we used to do this. We don't do it anymore, but was paying for reviews. If they generated a review, we would pay out $25 a review.
Yep.
Why? Because when we were trying to build our reputation early on, we needed those reviews, not only for them to be booked, but for us as a company to show like that we were, on the up and up, and that people could trust us with their event.
Right.
And if that's not something that you've tried yet, I definitely think, especially as you're starting out, it puts money in their pocket. That review is probably one of your best advertising dollars you can spend, because it's there forever. Right?
Yep.
Like it's not going to be gone after a month on a newsstand, or after the bridal show or wedding show is done. No, this is going to be there forever. And so that's always going to be a marketing piece you can use for that particular in person. So
absolutely. We do the same.
You do? Okay.
Yep.
And then we also incentivize them as far as pay with if they are bringing in the job. In other words, if they're making the phones ring, then and people are asking for them in particular, they get paid a different level of pay than if they were just, hey, we're assigning you to a job. And that way there's like mutual buy-in. It's not just like, hey, Brian, keep me busy. No, it's like, hey, we're going to keep you busy, but then if you want to make even more dough, like you've got to pull your weight too to make those phones ring for us. And so it's shared, and it feels like we're not like, I'm not wholly dependent on them, but they're not wholly dependent on me either. Like they can kind of affect their pay in a different route. You know what I mean?
Yep, we do the same thing. We've got different milestones that if they meet it, they get either different levels of pay. And actually at the very top for us is, which nobody has hit for us yet, but it's dangling the carrot out there. And that's a full all expense paid trip to Mobile Beat, hotel, flight, and their pass taken care of if they can meet certain numbers. So
wow. Okay. Well, that kind of leads me to another part of this, because I think pay definitely, like I said, is number one and people always look to. But we really believe in this philosophy of making it more relational than transactional. And I think sometimes you can and I can speak to this from experience. We've lost some people, not because the pay wasn't good, but because they felt like it was just like we never checked in, like the culture wasn't great.
Right.
So I think another part of retaining staff outside of money is having a great culture within your team, where it's like we're all in this together. And I think it doesn't matter whether it's subcontractor or employee. I think that still can be developed pretty well. Obviously, it's a little bit easier on the employee side, but with subcontractors, I still think if they feel like they're part of a bigger thing, like they're going to want to work with you as opposed to somebody else more often.
Absolutely. And I actually had this down for one of our later episodes, but I can kind of talk about this now, I think, as well too. To really foster those relationships within your team, just like you said. So we actually have a group, a secret group called the Cutmaster Music Alumni. And what we do is, if you are still in good standing with the company, but you've just kind of moved on to other things in life, you're beyond Cutmaster Music, we put you into the Cutmaster Music Alumni group. And we just share things. It's like a little family environment and atmosphere. But then I might post something and say, hey guys, I don't know if anybody out there is interested in making a few extra bucks this holiday, season, but I've got an event next week. We could use a photo booth attendant. And so you keep them in the loop, right? And you just never know. And every now and then you get somebody that, hey, you know what? I'm free. I could make an extra $100, right. And so I like to do that and foster the relationships beyond the life of Cutmaster Music.
Right. Similar concept too, I think, and this does have a little bit of money tied to it, but we always want to surprise and delight. So we look for opportunities, whether it's like, it could be clothing. We've in some cases, like I saw a guy whose suit was just looking a little, could be updated.
Right,
and I didn't have any reason to really take him out shopping, but I said, you know what, I'm going to take you to the Men's Warehouse and we're going to get you a new suit. And he was just ecstatic that I would like look to that. I'm not taking it out of his pay. I'm not like, it's just something to kind of, again, foster that like, hey, we're all in this together and no strings attached kind of a thing. I just want to do this. So if he quit tomorrow, it's not like I'm going to ask for the suit back. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's one. And then we also do that with birthdays too. We look for ways to celebrate them and their birthdays. Whether maybe it's a pair of headphones, maybe it's a piece of gear or just something. Not that they're expecting it, but we look for ways. One guy, his anniversary with our company was 5 years. And so he's into these crazy socks. It was a thing for a while. And so we got him a subscription for a year. Every month he got a new pair of like these crazy socks. And it was great because on our team, we were like waiting for him to post like, what was this month's delivery? You know what I mean?
Right.
Some people do it with ties and, different things, but we try to find different things like that to, keep it a family in a sense and not feel so like it's just a paycheck and that's it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Any other kind of tips that you can think of for retaining staff that has been a good win for you beyond the monetary side? Or actually, let me ask you another question too, along those same lines, is just because I think it's something that for me, it would be interesting to learn, like on the subcontractor side, how are you keeping them working for you more so than anybody else? Like, or is that ever a conflict of interest at all? Like if they're getting booked out under their own name or maybe through another company, how do you keep them almost loyal to you to an extent beyond with that kind of gray area?
You know what? And I don't know if I'm just in a unique market and situation, Brian. In all honesty, I've never had somebody that has said, you know what, I'm going to go do an event for this other company this week. I think that definitely when people get onboarded with us, there's one of the traits that maybe I've been good at finding that is the loyalty aspect of it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if maybe there's a fear of them not ever getting to work with us ever again if they go work for someone else or what. I don't know exactly what it is, but we seem to have pretty good loyalty to the company and just doing events for us. I've got some guys that have gone out and done little birthday parties and things. And I find that if they go and do things on their own, it tends to be more for like friends and family. Right. As opposed to going out and doing like a mitzvah or a wedding in lieu of doing an event with cut masters. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Good for you. I wish I had that same success where I was at, man. That's awesome. One last thing I as far as a tip from me is I think this isn't something that you can really always keep on the forefront of your mind, but evolving and keeping things fresh, I think, is another way to retain staff. I read a book. I cannot remember it I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it was talking about how when you're always, and this is more from the customer standpoint, but if you're always introducing something new or fresh, like it keeps people engaged.
Right.
And I feel the same way within our team. Like you don't want to be sporadic and like every week, okay, guys, we've changed the pricing model of what you're getting paid and we're going to do all these different things where like it doesn't feel stable.
Right.
I think if you can kind of evolve and feel like there's something always new and fresh and exciting happening with your company, it's another way to kind of keep people in the fold.
I think that's huge. And something I just did think of is that, I like to give our guys, extended responsibilities. And like, I want them to feel like they've got some sort of, skin in the game and some ownership here. So if guys come in and they want to like try different things or, they've got ideas, really, that's what I'm looking for. I want guys to do that. And I think I've felt like we've had people that have joined our team that feel that way. They're like, oh, like, wow, I can't believe you guys, that we can do that here or this and that. And I'm like, absolutely. Like, let's, if you've got some cool idea, let's try it. And I'll tell them, I might shoot you down and I might say no. I said, but you might bring some things that I might like, absolutely. Let's go out and do it and see, so I think guys like, that are really looking to have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit within them and in the industry, I think it seemed to thrive off of that sort of relationship.
That's awesome. Well, guys, hopefully you got something out of this. I know I did, just in a couple of things that Chris mentioned. So we'll see you for another episode in the series of hiring and retaining DJ staff. Bye-bye now.